And while this may come as a surprise to many, if you've been following the channel, you'll know it was inevitable. Harris's campaign has been abysmal, and Donald Trump has perfected the public relations game. When you factor in all the immigration difficulties, it was practically a wrap. Trump has earned enough seats, 270, to become president. Thus, he will return in 2025. He is the president-elect, which means the United States will be a very different beast by next year. We need to talk about Trump's plans because the possibility of America being completely protectionist is real. It is not simply the president that must be regarded. The entire U.S. government is becoming crimson. The Senate is now majority Republican, and the House is close to following suit. Whatever policy Trump proposes will most likely pass. There are no more hurdles, so if he wants to ignite a global trade war, there is little to stop him. Trump has made several bold pledges, the first of which is the promise of reciprocal tariffs, and that's probably the first shoe to drop. Trump will punish nations who dare to tariff U.S. goods. It's fascinating to observe how NATO and the EU respond. Europe is in a panic. We'll have to speak about those while leaders like Macron rush to congratulate Trump. And don't forget France's large tax on U.S. internet companies. Digital enterprises doing business in France that exceed a specific level will be required to pay a 3% tax on revenues, which will bring in at least 670 million euros to France in 2023. So internet behemoths like Google and Facebook are affected. Biden may have permitted it, but all will change shortly. We can be certain that Trump will rescind the tax and use his 10% worldwide tariff as a stick to begin discussions.
Macron, do you know Macron? He's a very nice guy, Macron. And really a very nice guy. I said, Emmanuel, how are you? He said, fine. I said, I heard you're going to charge American companies 25% to do things in Mexico. Who else are you doing? Well, nobody yet, but we will do other. I said, no, but you're not going to do it, Emmanuel. You're not going to, no, Donald, it has already passed. I said, well, you better unpass it, because if you don't unpass it, you're going to pay a 100% tariff on all wines and champagnes that are shipped into the United States starting tonight. No, you cannot do that, Donald. You cannot do that. I said, I can do that. In fact, I'm just signing it right now. No. Okay, Donald, look, okay, we're not going to do it. That was the end of it, Mike. That was the end of it.
But let's talk about China and Donald Trump, because what happened will change the calculus for Beijing. If Kamala wins, things will be relatively easy. We'll see a controlled escalation in the economic war, and semiconductor restrictions will tighten but remain manageable for the Chinese. However, the second coming of Trump has turned the equation. China cannot afford to stay idle and allow Trump to launch his initial volley. They must move quickly and aggressively. If the 60% tariff is implemented, Beijing has the tools and determination to strike back. The administration is developing a $1.4 trillion stimulus plan and is about to release it. A 60% tariff will ruin what remains of U.S.-China commerce, as Chinese exporters continue to rely heavily on trade with the U.S. In 2017, China exported 18% of its commerce to the United States, making it the single largest country ahead of the EU and Hong Kong. Exports have slipped below 15% today, but a large part of the BRICS and Southeast Asian countries are making up the difference. Exports to Mexico are also increasing, but not quickly enough. The only remaining option is to increase domestic expenditure, so expect a massive bazooka boost in the next days and weeks. China's finance ministry is gathering in a few days, and it's no coincidence. The PBOC has stated that a stimulus would be implemented with increased intensity and that the Chinese government is prepared to respond to Trump's trade war. We cannot emphasize the importance of this boost. The risk of U.S. trade crashing to zero is real, and it will affect employment and earnings for tens of millions, if not more. Sentiment in the Chinese property market will deteriorate as well, and the stimulus will assist to correct this. During Biden's presidency, we heard rhetoric that China was uninvestable, which slowed foreign investment in Chinese assets. Beijing should also reverse this. Foreign holdings in Chinese assets plummeted by 15% in 2022 and have just recently recovered in 2024. When Trump won, U.S. markets surged while practically everything else fell. They aim to put a floor under real estate, promote domestic consumption, and restore investor confidence in Chinese equities, which means unleashing the stimulus wave as well. Let us not forget that not all of this is good news for the United States. If Trump launches a trade war, we may expect China to react. China still receives 6 to 7% of overall U.S. exports. Farmers in the United States stand to lose significantly. Since 2017, China has reduced its reliance on U.S. food imports. Take soybeans, for example. China imports around 7 million tons every month. Total consumption is increasing, although the bulk comes from Brazil. At its height, the U.S. supplied more than 40% of China's supply, but that figure has since decreased to 20%. During the campaign, Trump threatened John Deere with tariffs if they shipped manufacture to Mexico, therefore forcing the tractors to be built in the United States would raise the cost of food production. And this means China now has two major motivations to entirely divorce from U.S. food imports: to react against tariffs, and because costs are just too high in comparison to other suppliers. Now, as China prepares, we must discuss the EU. The Europeans are terrified. Nobody in Brussels believed Trump was going to win. NATO also did not anticipate a Trump victory. However, the computations have crumbled. Trump's second coming is sending Europe into a panic. Von der Leyen is scrambling to respond. She advises Trump to collaborate closely with the EU to develop a strong transatlantic agenda. And it's clear that Europe needs the US more than ever. EU industries are crumbling, hence US demand is required. They have also harmed relations with Russia and China. As a result, the EU's bargaining leverage is severely diminished. First, the US dollar has gained. Since Trump's victory, the dollar has gained at least 1.2% against major currencies. This is particularly harmful for Europe. EU exports are declining, while imports are becoming considerably more expensive. So industries are likely to get squeezed even more. Trump wants Europeans to buy more American-made products. But can Europe even afford it? Purchasing goods manufactured in the United States, particularly with a strong currency, is very inflationary. China exports deflation, whereas the United States sells inflation. And this is very clear now. The EU's biggest difficulty, however, is its defense budget. Trump has often intimated that NATO should pay up. In no uncertain terms, Europe must pay up. It's time to cough up their protection funds. Trump is going to collect on their insurance premiums. But really, can Europeans pay? Since the 1990s, the EU has continually reduced its defense spending. Even now, defense expenditure is near record lows. Germany is down 28%, France is down 35%, and the UK is the worst. Britain has cut its budget by more than 50%. So, if Trump comes calling, can the EU economies afford the additional costs? What will happen to their respective industries? The EU obviously does not have a trade surplus. As a result, the funds must be obtained through deficit spending, which increases the debt load. However, let us briefly discuss Russia. Throughout the campaign, Trump talked about resolving the crisis, bringing Putin and Ukraine to the negotiation table, and ending the conflict in 24 hours. Russia, of course, is cautious to declare victory. The Kremlin is quite dubious and is taking a wait-and-see approach. They still see the United States as a hostile country. Trump has made many bold promises over the previous year, and he must now deliver on them. A large element of his goal is to restore peace to Europe and bring the war to a conclusion. And based on the Russian assertions, they want something very substantial from Trump.
Said very boldly, you could end this Ukrainian-Russia war in 24 hours.
Yeah.
How?
So I know Zelensky very well because he was very honorable with the fake phone call, impeachment hoax #1. They said I made a phone call to him and I was very threatening. I wasn't at all. I was actually very nice. I was congratulating him on a victory. But when they asked him, they said, were you threatened? He didn't even know what they were talking about. He was very honorable. He could have done grandstand. He said, yeah, I felt threatened, I felt threatened. He didn't do that. And as you know, I get along very well with Putin. I would tell Putin, you gotta settle. I would tell Zelensky, you gotta settle. I would tell one, you're gonna load up with money. I'd tell the other, you're not gonna get any money. I would get a settlement in 24 hours. Now, it should have never happened. You have thousands, hundreds of thousands of dead people right now, hundreds of thousands. You have cities that are obliterated. I don't know if you've ever seen the cities after they finish with the rockets. You have cities with no buildings standing. It looks like just a demolition zone. It's so horrible.
Sad.
And and then they'll say 2 people were hurt. No, hundreds of people and thousands of people were killed. You're going to find out when this whole thing is over that the number of people killed is far greater than they tell you. They're not telling you the truth. Many, many thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are dying. These cities are being obliterated. And basically they say, what's your stance? Are you for Russia or are you for... I'm for one thing very simple. I want to stop people from getting killed, and I'll have it stop.
The promise of finishing the conflict by December sounds big, but it is unlikely to materialize. It will be a gradual burn, and the Russian readout indicates that Putin wants to see tangible actions made. Peskov has stated that the U.S. is both directly and indirectly engaged. Shift does not happen immediately, but the United States has the ability to shift the course of its foreign policy. The frozen Russian assets would undoubtedly be a major source of conflict. Will Trump continue to confiscate the money, or will he reverse the sanctions and return the money? And all of these are extremely serious problems that require solutions. During Biden's administration, the G7 confirmed a $50 billion loan to Ukraine secured by assets. Would Trump follow through on the plan? Because if he does, Russia will not interpret this as a show of good faith. So Trump's win must be accompanied by tangible action, which, to be honest, is more of a coin flip at this point. We all know Trump's mantra is peace through strength. However, this power, particularly his tariff battle, has the potential to backfire dramatically. He is a powerful man who will not back down from a battle, and if he keeps his campaign pledges, the U.S. economy will suffer. A global trade war may slash U.S. GDP and raise inflation, and the consequences are significant depending on the scenarios. If the globe retaliates, the U.S. GDP will decline by 1.3%, while the CPI will rise 50 basis points. Of doubt, this will lead to increased unemployment in the future, but if China alone retaliates, the U.S. would face an inflation nightmare. GDP may fall by 0.8% based only on CPI, resulting in a 4.3% increase in inflation by 2028. The cost of living problem will worsen, putting an even greater strain on the middle class. Tariffs, in any form, are really terrible news for the U.S. economy. So folks, hold on tight because a Trump victory would be historic. Every equation in the world is being flipped, but please let me know your thoughts. Will Trump truly make a difference in Washington, and will he start a worldwide trade war? Please let me know in the comments below. Stay safe and make sure to like and subscribe as we traverse these tumultuous times.